Secret documents have revealed the eyewitness accounts of New Zealand Special Forces soldiers who accused an Australian SAS operator of brutalising the corpses of 2 militiamen in the aftermath of a fierce firefight in East Timor in 1999. The case was investigated as after the Australian Federal Police agreed with military investigators that the wounded men may have been shot at close range in an act of revenge. Warning: this story contains graphic content. One New Zealander recounted how he had been told that one of the militiamen got up to try to flee when the soldier Four Corners has called Operator K, arced him up, or shot him. In an investigation airing tonight, Four Corners has obtained 11 NZ SAS witness statements that were never heard in court, in which some say Operator K lost it after the battle and punched and kicked the bodies. The incident prompted an NZ SAS officer to warn his soldiers against emulating the cowboy approach of the Australians, who ignored his suggestion to sideline the loose cannon Operator K. The firefight was sparked by a pro-Indonesia militia ambush outside Swai near the West Timor border on October 6, 1999, during an operation by the Australian and New Zealand SAS and members of the British Special Boat Service. The forces, known as Interfit, were there to stop the violence unleashed in the wake of the Timorese vote for independence from Indonesia. People in East Timor had voted overwhelmingly in favour of independence from Indonesia. Concerned by militia activity in and around Swai, Interfit's commander, Australian Major General Peter Cosgrove, sent in the Special Forces to clear them out. After detaining some suspected militia and flying them to the capital Dili, the Australian SAS put about 100 of the rest in a convoy and began escorting them to the West Timor border. Just outside Swai, the convoy came under fire from the side of the road. 2 SAS soldiers were wounded in the ambush, the first serious Australian combat casualties since the Vietnam War. In response, the Australians returned fire, ing the 2 militiamen. "They are our rounds, just the bodies." The ings and their aftermath were the focus of a 2.5-year special inquiry by the Royal Australian Corps of Military Police. The NZ SAS witness statements have never been publicly released. Four Corners has obtained the statements and spoken to more than 100 people with knowledge of the incident and its aftermath. One New Zealand SAS operator, codenamed Soldier U by military police investigators, said he thought the firefight was over and then heard gunshots. "I heard a number of shots. Each time I heard one I went to ground. This happened about 2 or 3 times." One of his comrades believed the shots were being fired into the corpses of the 2 militiamen after the firefight, which would be illegal. "I heard someone call out, 'They are our rounds, just the bodies,' or words to that effect." A New Zealand SAS officer codenamed Soldier X said he was later told that Operator K put a few extra rounds into the bodies that were already. But another Kiwi SAS soldier told investigators that after the ambush, an Australian comrade raised an even more shocking allegation. He then went on to say how Operator K was trying to claim the S from the ambush site. He further went on to tell me how when the 2 bodies were recovered, one of them was not, and it got up and started to run away when Operator K arced him up. After the ambush, the 2 bodies were loaded on top of an Australian light armoured vehicle and taken into Swai. The LAV the bodies were loaded onto. The New Zealanders, among them Soldier U, say they then witnessed more disturbing scenes. "On our return to Swai, I can also recall seeing Operator K standing on top of this LAV towards the rear. I heard Operator K scream, 'How dare you shoot my boys,' or words to that effect. He was also kicking and punching the bodies as he said this. At this time, I was about 10 to 15 meters away from the LAV, and I thought to myself, 'Fuck, he's lost it.' He then kicked one of the bodies off of the back of the LAV. 3 other NZ SAS members, including Soldier T, saw at least one of the bodies kicked off the vehicle. I saw Operator K standing on the rear of this vehicle. I heard him scream, 'That's for hurting my lads,' or words to that effect. I can also recall him kicking the bodies as he said this. He then kicked one of the bodies off the LAV, and I assisted in lifting the other one down. I was shocked by what I just witnessed. Soldier P gave an account of seeing one of the bodies kicked again once it was on the ground. I also heard the distinctive voice of Operator K saying, "Got you, YA fuckers," or words to that effect. I heard Operator K's voice emanating from the direction of where I could see a body lying on the ground. Several minutes later, I looked towards the direction of the body again, only to see approximately 2 persons standing in the vicinity of the body while another kicked it 1 or 2 times. Soldier T also stated that he was concerned that both bodies had been shot through the throat, as it was near impossible to have 2 separate wounds on each body to the throat in similar positions. Hear from the investigator, who travelled around the world to investigate these allegations tonight on 4 Corners on ABC TV and iView. Australian cowboys. In the aftermath of the Swai ambush, New Zealand SAS officer Soldier X told the RACMP investigators that Operator K was a loose cannon and often unprofessional in the way he was conducting himself whilst on operations. He said the approach of the Australians prompted him to remind his troops of the mission in East Timor. I became concerned with the attitude of the SASR, Australian SAS, and there seemed to be a general perception that this was a war, like Vietnam, and not a peacekeeping mission. I would describe their attitude as being cowboys. As a result of this, I told my soldiers that this was a peacekeeping mission and not a war. This was to ensure that at no time could we, that NZ contingent, be tarred with the same brush, that is, a cowboys. The Australians' approach prompted a New Zealand SAS officer to remind his soldiers it was a peacekeeping mission, not a war. Soldier X said he talked about this with the officer in charge of the British Special Boat Service Detachment and raised our concerns regarding Operator K with the Australian SAS operations officer. He suggested Operator K be taken off frontline operations and sent back to headquarters in Dili. However, nothing appeared to be done about it, Soldier X said. AFP deemed investigation prudent. In the months after the ambush, rumours continued to spread among Australian soldiers about the S of the 2 militiamen. Warning: this section contains images taken during an autopsy. An internal AFP report obtained by 4 Corners reveals the agency was brought in to advise the Defence Force, ostensibly due to concerns the ings may have constituted an offence of. 4 Corners has also obtained the confidential AFP review from May 2001, which says the rumours suggested the ings were an act of revenge for the wounding of the 2 Australian soldiers. The review notes that Australian military intelligence staff, who saw the bodies in Dili hours after the ings believed at least one was shot in the head at close range, due to singed hair around the neat entry wound. The AFP stated there was evidence suggesting someone may have shot both men at short range with a 9mm pistol after they had been wounded. Photos from a 2002 autopsy show the exhumed bodies of 2 militiamen had chest wounds and shattered skulls. The AFP said it was prudent for the ADF to run an investigation, even if other offences may later be identified to be more appropriate after consideration of all the facts. The political impact of this investigation has been assessed as substantial and has to be managed. The military police were also aware of the political sensitivities, stating in response to the AFP review, termination of this investigation is not considered to be a sound option. The allegations are known, and if defence is to avoid counter-allegations of cover-up, all allegations should be thoroughly investigated prior to any closure. As part of the investigation, the militiamen's bodies were exhumed, and a forensic pathologist performed autopsies to try to determine how they were. I believe what they were telling us. Carl Fellauer in East Timor. Former military police Sergeant Carl Fellauer is speaking publicly, for the first time, about his work investigating 19 allegations of wrongdoing in East Timor, including those against Operator K. As part of the inquiry team that interviewed hundreds of witnesses, he spoke with Kiwi SAS soldiers who were at the ambush site.